Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team. Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months.
This morning is all about leadership and influence.
This is the Inside Show with your host, Carl Hendricks here again. Thank you so much for tuning in on the Inside Show. And this morning we have a sticky subject here. I tell you, all the minority groups will benefit out of this discussion here. There's a new amended Employment Equity Act, which will be aid in workplace transformation in South Africa, set to be in operation on the 1st of September this year. So there are certain things that has been passed in the Gazette, the government Gazette. And this morning we have the Honorable Bishop Dulton Adams with us here from the ACDP. Also, he's not just a member, he's also the chair member of the provincial legislate of the ACDP. A warm welcome to the Honorable Bishop Dulton Adams.
Good morning, Doctor, and good morning to all listeners and viewers on the Inside Show this morning. It's my honor to be here, and looking forward to having this deep discussion with you on the Employment Equity Amendment Act.
I tell you, we're going to run on this thing. There's 80% black people in this country, colored people 9%, and we have 8% India, rather 8% whites and 3% Indians. Now, all these minority groups should be on board together because there's certain things that's already gazetted and it's already signed off by the president and will be enforced on the 1st of September, if I'm right, Honorable Bishop. But let me just give you the breakdown. It means in the workplace, like national, you must, for Africans, there must be 30.4% people in the workplace. That's now, at this point in time, they have it as the cream of the crop, people on top, like people that's in COO positions, people that's skilled, professional skilled people, and so on. So we're not talking about the lay people as yet, people that's just working in the shops and store packers and sweepers and stuff like that. But I tell you now, it's coming for everybody. So on the top level, 30.4% must be black, and then 3.5% must be colored, 1% Indian, and 8% whites. And in totality, the blacks will be 35%. But what I don't understand, that it seems like the whites are 8 and the colors are 3%, but the stats show that there are more colors than whites. I just don't understand why they publish it specifically in that manner in the Gazette. But back to the bishop. When you were interviewed at a march in in Westbury earlier this month, you mentioned the dire social economic challenges faced by brown people in South Africa. How does this amendment impact those, Bishop?
Doc, I start off by saying that the Employment Equity Amendment Act that was assented by the President in April and published by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Thulas Nxesi, after that, which he published at least 18 economic sectors that will have to be affected in terms of the targets vis-a-vis the quotas, which correctly you have said must come into effect on the 1st of September. Now, for me, Dr. Hendricks and viewers, the straw that broke the camel's back was the signing into law the Employment Amendment Equity Act. For me, what happened was, when you could take back from 1994, there has been a systemic marginalization, a systemic sidelining. There has been a concerted effort, let me put it that way, to not allow the colored child, the brown child, the colored person to rise. And we began to see that in private sector, in government, you begin to see that the numbers of our people being employed has diminished and decreased quite astronomically. So to come now with the Employment Amendment Equity Act has just come to exacerbate that figure that is already being cut down to size. Your question, Doctor, with regards to saying that the social ills and the subcultures that I so fondly speak about with pain in my heart is that in our communities, you find our children not finding job opportunities, skills development. You're not finding opportunities for them, which I can ultimately directly connect to unemployment, non-skilling, not having internships, not giving opportunities, because our children now find themselves on the streets. And in Afrikaans we say, ledigheid is die duiwel se oorkussing. And that is the major concern, Dr. Carl.
Bishop, tell us, there's three groups that's taking the government to court based on this Equity Act. It's the solidarity groups, and there there's a whole lot of people that's included in the solidarity groups. It's mostly white people that comes together with deep pockets. They are standing on the one side. And then you get the DA, which is also a big organization in the country, political organization, and then 30 other small interest groups. Why specifically are you going for activism around this whole situation and not joining the court route per se?
Well, we give our support. We give our support in terms of litigation being done in the courts. We give our support to that because you must fight it litigated in courts. But we also felt, and this is where I come into the fray to lead the charge on the ground, in the streets. Because normally you find that the people on the streets do not really know what employment equity is all about. So we have to brutally tell them, this is what is coming. And inadvertently, one has to begin to break it down for them, to say that in a workplace, for instance, if you have ShopRite Checkers, which is one of the companies that we have targeted, as you can see in the marches that we've had, if they have, say, about 500 employees, the Act actually allows the African black to be the majority, and then coloreds would be possibly 0.8% colored people there. So it actually legally allows them to not employ colored people or Indian people or white people for that matter. Let me come into this point, is that you look at the white person. The white people are not activists. They don't go to the streets, they go to courts. You have mentioned that. The Indian people are not activists. They never get involved in terms of being activists, fighting a fight. They do their thing and they laat God's water or God's akker vloei. Directly affected is the colored child, the colored person. Mostly affected, let me put it like that, will be us as colored people. Unapologetically, I say today, doctor, I'm fighting for the survival of the colored race. I want to awaken the colored people to say, if we do not stand together against this evil, racist bill, it's going to annihilate. In fact, let me put it this way and put it even stronger. It'll be genocide. It's genocide being perpetuated against our people. Let me say to the listeners and to the viewers today and to yourself, Dr. Carl, if we do not take a stand today, our children will blame us and say, what have you done to fight for our survival and fight for our rights? That's how serious this thing is. Currently, in the city of Johannesburg, for instance, there's over 30,000 employees. Currently, as I speak, I don't have the correct figure, but over 30,000, can be close to 40,000 of the employees. Do you know how many colored people are employed in the city of Joburg? 800 coloreds. 30,000? 800? Anybody can see this is ludicrous. And for our people to sit back on their laurels, to sit in their comfort zones, to think that they are okay. No, this employment equity bill is going to come back to bite you, bite your children, bite your current employment and your comfort zones. So you have to begin to say, it's not on. We have to stand together to say, not in our name will we allow this to happen, that our children and us find ourselves kicked to the curb.
To break it down to ground level, if matriculants, let's say a specific school, have 100 matriculants, out of that 100 matriculants, how many students after varsity, after college, after technicon will be able to get the job?
2.5%.
2.5%.
2.5% of them, of 100, can be 3 people.
That have surety that after matric they'll have a job.
And what happens to the rest of the children?
The other thing that I just want you to speak about, and you were vocal about it the other day, is that if you look at white people, they have absolutely deep pockets. They're also the minority, but they've got a lot of companies, big companies, and they own South Africa.
69%.
69%.
69%
So,
of the economy.
so there's something very interesting around this. Then you have the Indians. Out of the Indians in the groupings, if I have the percentage right here, just get a 3% are Indians. Out of that, majority of them own companies. If it's small, medium-sized companies, one shop or so on, but they're kind of independent and they establish themselves. Where does the colored person find themselves within this
Sandwich.
if you may call it sandwich?
Yeah, correct. Now,
And that's the reason why you're so strong this morning.
Right. I'm unapologetic when it comes to the white people are being affected. They are being affected when it comes to the Employment Equity Amendment Act. But as you correctly say, there is a buffer, there's a cushion. They have been protected over the years. You cannot compare. It's not apples to apples here. Not apples to apples. They have been privileged. They have the economy. 69% of the economy is in their hands. Most of the land is in their hands. So for them, it will not affect them. This will not affect them as much as it affects the colored person. The Indian person, you correctly articulated it, doctor, to say that they have really worked hard. Must commend them, must applaud them. They've worked hard economically to establish themselves. That's why you see they don't really come out too strong. And even when we call them and say, ons is aan broers, we are together, they say, no, they're not fighting for us. They're not, and we don't expect them to fight for us. Somebody said in Afrikaans very succinctly and clearly, brain kind is op jou eie. And that is where we are today. And we raise our hands to say this is the survival of the colored race in South Africa.
Bishop, does the Employment Equity Act amendment mean that the BBBEE has failed or needed some form of update? What is your opinion about the alternative to the BBBEE?
Well, what happened after 1994, I think it was a consensus in terms of CODESA to say, let us go in with the affirmative action policies and then the triple BE policies and to allow it. But I must categorically, that the African National Congress government, which is the current leading governing party at the moment, has fluffed it badly. They messed it up. It's only elitist blacks that benefit. Not even the masses of our African black people are benefiting from AA and from triple BEE. So it has failed miserably. Look at poverty. Look at what's happening in this country. And I want to put this disclaimer, doctor, which is important for this show. We are not racist. We're not against black African. These are our brothers and we fought together in the struggle. We are fighting the system, those who are putting legislation in place that divides us, that brings polarization against races and tells one race is better than the other race. It is nothing more different than apartheid was.
It's almost in reverse. Do you feel that brown people are being discriminated against and excluded from employment opportunities by the ANC government? And in this bill, my question differently. I wanted to know, how do they manage to get this legislated?
Well, it was
based on Parliament. Can you explain us the procedure around this whole?
So what happens in Parliament? So before an act, it's a bill, right? And then it has to go for what we call public participation. Public participation is then steered and directed from Parliament to different committees that actually this Employment Equity Act will fall under the ambit of that. And then it has to you come back to legislature and it must go to different regions and different provinces and rural nooks and places and rural areas everywhere. Public participation concerning this thing, all communities, stakeholders must be engaged because it's a constitutional imperative that there must be public participation. And let me state this, doctor, there was, as far as we know, you can tell me, the listeners can tell me, was there any public participation concerning this act? Absolutely no. We never heard about it. When we heard about the amendment of the Employment Equity Act, ons skrik ons uit ons bloedgroep uit. And we began to realize that these things were not taken for public participation. It was just taken through, villy-vally, it's true. And before you know it, The president signs it into law, and it's published. And on the 1st of September, it's coming. As
a law.
As a law. So that means it must be done. Then in 5 years' time.
Yes.
In 5 years, the minister then gives companies and everybody this 5-year leeway to say, get the targets right, get the quotas right. After 5 years,
then the trouble starts. Big trouble, because
big trouble comes.
But now, just another question. They say it's for 50 and more, right? At this point in time.
49.
Yeah, 49. Let's round it off for 50. But 49 people. So anything above 49, this act will be relevant for them. Any amount of people working in any company below 49, they will not be touched or influenced by this act. Am I right on that point?
100% correct.
But now, this is my question. If you have enough money, and you have multiple companies, and you do 25, 25, 25, 25, and you can afford it, and it's your company, or you just do 48, 48, 48, 48, do you think there's a possibility that you can still keep the company pure white,
exactly,
or pure colored, or pure Indian, and this Equity Act will not touch you?
Well, let me take you back to
but the problem is the masses, right?
Right. Let me take you back to when it came to affirmative action in terms of fronting. Are you with me? When companies took the garden gentleman, I can't say the garden boy, took the garden gentleman, or the helper in the house, made them directors, fronting. This is going to happen exactly. And I heard verbatimly some companies, I was in a meeting with other big white companies where they said all they're going to do is to break up their company into segments. Because when you are 49 and under, you don't have to comply with the stringent criteria that is then expected of you to be able to get tenders from government. What they will do then is they will also put in place companies under 49, and those companies will apply and they will source from them. So there's every law, people look for ways to circumvent it. But you mentioned something very interestingly, Doc, when you said it is the masses that will suffer at the end of the day. It's again, they have the power, the prowess, the financial muscle to be able to modify and to make things workable and pliable for them. But we are fighting for Joe Soap in the street, for Auntie Sari that's standing there. Her children have no jobs, and that is what we are fighting for. But mostly we are fighting for the survival of the colored nation.
My question to you, Bishop, I would love to know, why is there not so many other voices on preparation for this show here, between everybody who did research around it, from the producer to my executive assistant? I would love to know. It was hard, very, very hard, to find an opinion from any other political organization that's as verbal as you are. The last few months you were on television, and you don't dig around the bush around this Equity Act. How is it that I don't see or hear more voices from the activist perspective? You know,
when I said the last straw that broke the camel's back, when I saw the president signing and I began to study the Amendment Equity, the Employment Amendment Equity Act, and I began to realize the devastation that it's going to cause, I clothed myself with the weaponry to fight it. For reasons being that I knew that our children are already, I walk into a macro and it's only black. I walk into a ShopRite Checkers. I sit in a committee, in a portfolio committee in legislature, black. How do you feel that you know your own race is not even represented? And the question is, there's no much voices that are coming out that are speaking against it, which I think it's quite sad. One has to stand for something in life, or you will fall for everything. I would admonish all our political parties, our churches, our pastors, our stakeholders, everybody must actually take hands to say that we need to fight this Employment Equity Amendment Act, which is going to be causing great devastation among our people. Now, sometimes the reason why people do not stand up is because they might be in bed with some people, or they might be holding hands with some people. There might be some favors that are being done. People who don't sell their souls is able to stand up and voice an opinion to say, this is what we stand for. And let me say to you, Doc, we are prepared to continue the fight until doors are open. Let me give you an example. The march that we had on the 12th, you saw the march, much publicized march. Yesterday was the 14 days that we went back where we gave memorandums. We got commitment. In fact, after that march, listen to this. Let me say this. There's a principle that says this. Everything in life assumes a position of stagnation. And until pressure is applied, it shall not move. I'm going to say it again. Everything in life assumes a position of stagnation. And until pressure is applied, it shall not move. In instances of the Employment Equity Amendment Act, after the 12th, when we marched closed down, the traffic was chaotic in the whole of most of Johannesburg. The next day, not even 2 days, the next day, Gauteng provincial government brings out a circular that says the cadets for peace wardens, they want, this is not only for coloureds and Indians. Nou vra ek jou, hoekom kan julle so vinnig dit nou doen as ons paaie toemaak? Why must we protest? Which actually indicates and negates denotes the following: we must rise. Everybody must talk in their workplace. Everybody must talk in their business. Everybody must talk about it. It must be a day-to-day bread and butter issue that we deal with, and we will continue to say we will fight. They are now coming and saying, no, you are right for fight. Government is saying it. Yesterday, we met with the Premier's office with the crowds. I said, I will not meet with committees. You must come and speak to the people like I did yesterday. Come speak to the community. Nobody's going to benefit here. No leaders, because you find that only some leaders and their factions and their groupings and their cliques benefit. I said, no, I want nothing to do with this. I'm a conduit. Speak to the people. Tell them what you're going to do with them. And every single entity we went to talk has committed that they are going to make sure that our children will get opportunities. That is the fight we must fight unapologetically, continuously, and perpetually. Because if we don't, we will have more children shooting each other dead. We will have more of our children on drugs, more of our young girls becoming pregnant at the age of 13, more of our children drawing SASA, more of our children being lost in alcohol abuse. These social ills will increase dramatically and will have lost generations, not just the one after us, even the ones after that. So if I really am a father, and I really am a pastor, and I really am a true leader, I cannot stand on the pulpit on Sundays and only preach about Jonah in the whale and preach about the boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fish and motivational speeches. We have to transform our minds, our beings, and our churches and our families in transformational agents, change agents. That is the key. Ultimately, let me speak to everybody. I studied the armblakke vraagstuk. You know the armblakke vraagstuk. When the British were oppressing the Boers at that time and they had nothing, I then likened where they were long before apartheid. These Boers, 40, say 70 years ago, they were there at the bottom. Do you know that the colors are at the same place? And if and unless we're not going to galvanize, mobilize, organize, strategize, get ourselves together, talk to each other, because colored people live too much in silos. Because I have a 3-story building, my children are in a private school, I have 2 cars, my wife has a Porsche, and I have a BMW. My family is okay. What you don't know is that the tide is turning faster than what you think, and it's going to catch us at the generation that's behind us.
And it's going to be too late. Bishop, tell me, between now and September, is there any possibility for this act to be reversed if the masses go to the streets?
I see no possibility. Let me tell you why. The unions themselves, the political parties in Parliament, and maybe I forgot to mention this. When the law was passed, there were parties in legislature, in Parliament, that approved it.
What was the ratio? Was it a 2/3 majority?
Well, the ANC doesn't have a 2/3 majority.
But I mean,
other parties like the DA
to get this passed.
Yes, like the DA and other parties helped, and they passed it. So there are parties there that is not African black, but parties that is also now being affected by the Employment Amendment Act, but they passed it when it was in Parliament at the time.
I wonder based on what? That is just a question. Based on what? Why didn't they think like ahead, 5 years ahead? So the reality for everybody watching out there is like they're going to test and trial. They're going to give you an opportunity to sort your company out, but after 5 years, it's law. Not that it's not law now. They give you a space of grace, but the popper will hit the fan 5 years from today.
You see, you mentioned something very interesting when you said that currently they are positioning and posturing the Employment Equity Amendment Act only to professionals, skilled, semi-skilled, executives and that kind. But already, from the bottom up, all the companies are saying Employment Equity Act. So whilst they are talking here on top level, the cream of the crop, as you correctly mentioned it. No, it's not that. Already the companies are saying, but the Employment Act says I don't have to. I heard it. I confronted these CEOs and managers with the masses, and they said, but that's what the law says, and the law is not yet applicable to the masses at lower levels. But they are already taking the opportunity to take our children. One of the managers in Shoprite Checkers told me, but your people are shoplifters, and I said, hey, chief. It's got nothing to do with that. If you go to Lens, it can be Indians that are stealing. If you go to white area, it can be white. So why are you polarizing? Why are you saying because our children, our people are shoplifters? You know, this is the kind of things. There is a systematic marginalization. There is an undermining spirit towards the colored people. I'm telling you today. And I said to myself, if somebody is not going to voice strong opinions about our people, I even said to them in 1976, the children said this talk, when they were fighting against the apartheid system, they said, liberation now, education later. Liberation now, education later. I am saying, colored fight now, rainbow nation later. Because the rainbow nation did not help us from 1994. So I'm saying, just leave us alone. Leave the colored people alone. Let us find ourselves. Let us work. Let us fight our fight. Let us position ourselves. We will see you in front. We can't now take everybody with us when everybody is not even recognizing us. Nobody is giving us opportunity and our place in the sun or our piece of the cake. So we are saying, for now we are fighting the colored fight. Not that we do not believe in non-racialism. Not that we don't believe that the country must be united, the country must be a collective together. We believe the Constitution it must happen like that, but not at the expense of the colored people.
Yeah. Now, Bishop, based on stats, I mean, way before Jan van Riebeeck arrived here in South Africa, way before that, this land belonged to the brown people. There were 5 groups that was in this grouping. So. And now you are completely cut out by a organization that claimed that on the first day when Nelson Mandela made his speech, that we are all black, and he categorized us as black. Or am I wrong in that?
Very interesting. Very important point, very important nerve that you're touching, which I must articulate to our viewers. You see, the issue of the Khoi and the Sen and the Kwe and the Griqua and the Hottentot and the Bushmen. Those are the people that you're talking about when the Portuguese came and when the Dutch came, and then the up north, the black races, the black tribes came from up north, found those different brown people here, and were actually the inboorlinge van hierdie land, the inhabitants of this land. We know the story, what happened in terms of the land being taken from them, their rights, their culture, their language was then diminished and destroyed. So what happens after 1994? After 1994, there was the issue of the Constitution speaks about we are all blacks. My argument on being all black is that if it's African black, colored black, and Indian black, the colored person actually gets lost in the blackness, Doc, percentage-wise. So when you say we are not represented as coloreds, but they say, but you are. And you ask how? They say, but there's the black figure. But how can we, but what is the percentage of coloreds? And that is how they've camouflaged this thing continually. Then the ANC comes out, and the ANC says it's about opportunities are for Africans in particular and blacks in general. So the African black benefits being black and being African in particular. So this blackness, and let me say this today, the ANC must recognize, which they have forgotten, our contribution to liberation in this country. They have forgotten that we fought shoulder to shoulder. I have a record of us fighting. But they have forgotten that we were also in the UDF. We were also in the school boycotts in 1976, in the school boycotts 1988. We were putting pressure. We were fighting. We were having economic boycotts, bus boycotts. We were fighting in the townships. You know that, Doc. But today they say we have done nothing. We have no contribution. We are forgotten. So we are saying to them that the colored person has continually said we are being marginalized and sidelined, and now you feel we were only good enough to take you over the line from apartheid, and now you're kicking us to the curb, and now you actually are perpetuating reverse apartheid against us. We are saying as the colored race, we are not going to accept it. We are rising strong. We are rising to fight for our children and our children's children. I applaud them. They were in the forefront when apartheid was abolished and demolished. We have to now, as a colored race, do the very same to abolish this reverse apartheid against us and our children and our generations behind us.
Bishop, my question will be, the 1st of September, it will literally be law. What difference will it make, even if the colors are now rising and let's say every colored community are up and raw about this whole situation about the Equity Act? What difference will it make?
No, our activism, our kicking the doors, will awaken a consciousness, like already it's awakening a consciousness. That's all you want to do, so wake a consciousness in the hearts and minds of people to say, look, man, our people are here. But most importantly, it is the self-realization, self-determination, and the self-existence of the colored race.
Yeah. Tell me, Bishop, do you also find in your experience being an activist, do you also find that the discord amongst colors, if we can sort that out, not that it's possible to perfect that, but in 5 years from now, then really the popper will hit the fan, where they will realize the child is now in grade, what is standard 6 now? Grade 8. So the child is in grade 8. When that child finish high school, and that is just around the corner, this will be full-fledged law, and their children will not get jobs. So this new generation are technically in trouble. My question to you rather is like, do you also find that there is like class with colors, which means those that's in senior roles at this point in time, if it's CEOs, COOs, for those that owns big companies and so on, they see themselves as white. It seems almost as if there is a identity crisis with them. They don't want to relate with the poor colored. Then you get that's your super rich. Then you get your middle class, and then your poor. What will it take to bring all colors together to let the penny drop around this Equity Act?
I think, in adversity and crisis, when you really realize that you have hit rock bottom, then you will realize that we have to stand together. Because some people are unit class, they feel they are better off. But what is most important for our people to realize, there's a case in point here at JMPD that I'm aware of. This is a senior lady. I won't say her name. She has been in JMPD for 30 years. When it came to appointment now into management, they have what they call a diversion in terms of making sure, although she's most qualified, because of the Employment Equity Act, they said, no, she can't get the job. A black person must get the job. So the fight has been to say, no, she is most qualified. We actually succeeded to make sure that woman actually gets promoted. She's going to be promoted into that post. That's one instance. What's going to happen is, in most companies, if you think you are secure, if you think you are in a position and in the seat, you're going to be ousted very quickly. We need to fight for a common cause. So what's going to unite us? Nothing unites a people more around their children. Nothing. And if we can see that this is an evil system that is directly earmarked and zeroed in and aerodynamically pointed at our children, then we'll begin to say, let's take hands together. It's going to be people like myself, like yourself, like all the activists, everybody that stands up. More voices being articulated, more noises are being made. People are being made aware. We talk about it around the table, in our churches, talk about it in the clubs, talk about it everywhere. That's the kind of conscientizing, mobilizing that we have to do so that we all begin to see that this thing is a reality, and unless we do something about it, it will really become a major problem for us.
Bishop, during the apartheid, the church played a vital role in changing the dynamics and the atmosphere within South Africa. What is the role of the church in all of this? Now, let me first add something. Let me inflict this wound further. You find so many people in top roles, and specifically people in prophetic roles. For instance, for me, Alan Busak was a prophetic voice during his time. For me, Desmond Tutu was a prophetic voice during its time. These days, it seems as if church is scared for politics, but it was precisely the church who was directly responsible for the change of course in South Africa. So what is the role of the church in all of this? So what is the church doing to address the alleged dangers of this bill, and how do you see the church taking leading role in fighting social justice again in South Africa?
Our faith, we are pastors. Our faith walks on two legs: righteousness and justice, and with the sword of truth in their right hand. Righteousness and justice and truth as a sword. And if and unless the church is going to take the responsibility not to fight for politics, because that is what polarizes us. We're not asking anyone to fight for politics. We ask the church, the men and women of God, the fivefold ministry, to rise for righteousness and justice. The God that I serve is a God of justice and righteousness. Christ Jesus, the anointed one, and his anointing came specifically to engage the Roman Empire, righteousness and justice. He admonishes us in his word. Look after the orphan and the widow and the destitute. He says, Jesus says, if somebody is hungry, feed them. If somebody is naked, clothe them. If somebody is thirsty, give them water. If they're in prison, visit them. That in itself is a revolutionary. Every pastor, everyone in the fivefold ministry must be a revolutionary. Not politically, but for righteousness and justice. The church must again become the consciousness of government. The consciousness of government. Currently, the church has lost its savor and its flavor as being salt. We are all in our own corners, in our own silos. As long as I'm making it, it is fine. But if the church is not going to come to the forefront and fight and only have our churches on a Sunday, it is not going to work for our people. So, Doc, you are correct, sir. The church must play a fundamental role to fight against injustice and fight against unrighteousness, fight against ungodliness. Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. But if the unrighteous rule, the people they are hemorrhaging and they are sad. At the moment, sir, the church is not making impact at all in this country. The church is being laughed at and scorned at. It is time that a revival takes place, not through tents, but through political persuasion of bringing churches, holding government officials accountable. The corruption that has happened, Doctor, the church doesn't even speak about that. The counselors that are doing deals with their cliques and their factionalism is not being spoken about. The unrighteousness is rife among everybody, and the church is supposed to be the voice of spiritual reason to bring about the fundamental change that we need. And you are correct. And I admonish the church. It's not about politics anymore. In fact, we have transcended, we failed politics. Because everybody wants to be in a political party. I am in the ACDP. Because I believe the ACDP is only a vehicle for me to activate my activism and to make sure that I have a voice in legislature, a place at the table. I want more of the men and women of God to come to the table. I've said that to you many times. And it's not about enriching myself or enriching a certain group of people. It's about fighting for the people representing, but that's what you are, representing the destitute and the downtrodden.
Before we close, I just want to hear from the producer there. Is there any remarks, anything from your side that we most probably can just mention, or if any questions that's from your side before we kiss our Bishop goodbye here? Bishop, thank you so much. It was really, really so great. Is there any closing remarks from you? Something that you will look into that camera and tell the people out there what's needed to be done, and that we need to act as an activist, or just raise your opinion and your voice, because this Employment Equity Act is serious.
I would like to say in closing, Doc, the colored people need to unite like never before. We must move away from schisms and divisions. We must move away from the fact that we're always pulling each other down. Move away from the fact that we are always jealous of each other, always speaking bad of each other, always, having this crab mentality, the pull-down syndrome. I want to speak to every single one of us. If and unless we're going to unite and take hands together and look at the future for our kids and for the generations after us, the Bible says one generation shall praise the work of another generation. I don't think that's going to happen now. So I admonish all of you. Stand up, make your voices heard, and let us unite and make sure that this Employment Equity Amendment Act won't be the death knell for the colored child.
There's a few remarks that we just want to cover there quickly.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and for our guest, Bishop Dulton Adams, for your insights. We've got QS, one of the users, saying, "Thank you for standing strong. It affects us more than we realize." QS also goes on to say, "I was listening to our current president addressing the world stage, indicating how we as South Africans were collecting crumbs from the intern stage during COVID. It made me think that this is the same with us coloureds now." And then Candace Sammy says, agreed 100%. Candace Sammy also says, "Lord, come now and come swiftly shake us so that we move as the Church of God." We've got Sonia Foster saying, "Absolutely true, Bishop. We need to raise our voice right where we are." And that's it.
On the first point, I listened to the president, and it was as if he was speaking to world leaders, to Macron, the president, who was the chairperson of France. And it was as if he's speaking for the colored people on Employment Equity Amendment Act. The very same thing that QS is saying there.
Yes.
He came out so strong to say, we are not beggars. We don't want crumbs. We're not here just to be, pacified. We're not here because out of numbers you might be richer than us and have more than us. But he was actually speaking employment equity and is not referring to it right in his own country.
Hey everybody, thank you so much. Woo! What a wonderful, wonderful show. Bishop Dulton Adams, thank you so much for your time and your availability around this Employment Equity Amendment Act. And I know we are living in serious times, but thank you for being so vocal. Thank you for being an activist, because I think we are fast asleep and we don't realize. From me to you, from Carl Hendricks and the Inside Show, I thank you so much for tuning in, and you have a super day. From me to you, God bless you and all the best. Goodbye.
Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team. Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years, 6, 3 months.
This morning is all about leadership and influence.